So I've just been having a nice little chat to my Patreon group about courage because my journal prompt to the, oh no, my creative prompt to them last week was to explore the word courage and how that looked for them, um, both on the page and internally. And I think I shared the journaling prompt with you guys as well, and that was, what or who would you have to let go of in order to become that fullest expression of your authentic creative self? And it's been an interesting week for me to actually live that. And it's all nice in theory to talk about these concepts, but it's a whole nother thing to go out into the world and practice being. So this week I was given a beautiful opportunity to practice being my authentic self in a very challenging situation in the workplace. And I won't go into details, but I'm happy to say that because when I left the house on Monday morning of this week, or last week it was, I set the intent that I was going to practice this week showing the world an aspect of me, of my authentic expression, that I've been too scared to show the world. Because when I was a little girl, I was shamed for it. I am what I consider a highly sensitive person, an HSP, which means I feel things very deeply. I'm very emotional. I was often scared as a child, like I wouldn't jump into the deep end of the pool and start swimming. It took me months, maybe a year, to slowly get myself in and, work through my fear. And I was shamed about that. My mother would say to me, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you just why are you so sensitive? Why are you crying? Why do you feel things so deeply?" Well, because that's who I am. But I didn't have the context to say that. So this aspect of me that came up, and wanted to be expressed and seen this week was the aspect of my authenticity that I call softness. So it's always been there. And the one part of my life that I was comfortable to show it was in my artwork. And I will share that with you. So you can see through this textile embroidery piece that softness is a really good title for this piece. The colors that I've used, I often work with a muted palette, the softness of the silk chiffon and the way I've made the flowers and the roses. And overall, it's a very soft and feminine design. And if you follow me on Instagram, and that's how you've come to my YouTube channel here or my Patreon, you will know that my work has a clear visual language. You can see, one of my students said to me, "I can spot your embroidery at 10 paces because it has a uniqueness that is my visual expression." Same with my fashion illustration images. They're all much of a muchness. They're different versions of the same thing. You can feel that aesthetic. So that is one of the areas, or really for me, the main area, that I felt it was safe to express that part of me through my creativity. But I was always a little bit ashamed of it. And I've been ashamed of the fact that I love pink. From the time I was a little girl, when someone would say to me, "What's your favorite color?" the answer was pink. I feel it in my heart. I feel colors like other people don't seem to feel them. And it's like, I love pink. So here am I declaring to the world, fuck you if you have a problem with that, but I love pink. I've got a pink phone, I've got a pink iPad, I've had a pink laptop, I even had a pink car when I was younger. I love pink, and I am no longer going to hide that fact. I am no longer pushing it down and denying it, and I am no longer ashamed of it. This is me showing up and reclaiming one of my authentic aspects that I haven't had the courage to show to the world. So let's just take a moment and pause. Are you aware of an aspect of yourself that doesn't get any expression? Do you know there's that part of you in there that you just keep pushing down, that you don't want to look at, that you don't want to know about? We all lie to ourselves. I've lied to myself my whole life. I have built a persona in order to cope with the outside world that completely denies who I truly am in my authenticity, because I felt that that wasn't acceptable. I felt it wasn't safe. It's not easy. It's a courageous journey if you choose to take this journey with me. But after my experience this week, I'm going to share with you, it was well worth it. So, not going into details, but there was an opportunity at work where there was a very uncomfortable situation, and I had a choice. It was a real choice point. I could either push the feelings that were rising up like a volcano within me, I could push them down, put on that professional mask and say, yeah, fine, let me sort that out. That's what I would have done in the past. In a professional setting, we don't voice, our true selves. We don't express our true emotions. But this time I chose not to do that. And I cried. I was so impacted by this person's aggression, and I was so frustrated by his manner and lack of emotional intelligence that I just allowed the tears of frustration to come up. And it was so interesting because in the past, I would have been mortified. I would have been ashamed. And if you're sitting there judging me, I get it. Sending you love, because I would have done the same thing to myself until very recently, because I've played into that game of conditioning. We don't cry in the workplace. There's a certain manner, you have to keep this mask on. And I chose not to. And here's what opened up. He stopped being aggressive. Now, whether he has enough emotional intelligence to actually go away and reflect on how his behavior impacted me to such a deep level, none of my business. That's his business. But I was proud of myself. That part of me felt amazing because she hadn't been subdued, she hadn't been denied expression, and she hadn't been ignored, abandoned, and pushed down. It also opened up a really beautiful dynamic between a colleague of mine and myself. She could see how deeply upset I was and gave me space just to feel it. I sat back at my desk. She said, cry it out, let me know when you're done, and I'll help you get to a resolution to this issue that she and I did not cause, but she and I had to sort out his mess. In the past, I would have dealt with a situation like that through anger. All right, I'd have pushed the vulnerability down, the softness down. I would have put on the professional mask, and then I would have shown anger and frustration in the workplace, but subtly, right? Because you can't express anger and frustration in the workplace to a high level either. So this was different. It changed the dynamic between the boss and I. It changed the dynamic between my colleague and I. Once I'd finished expressing my tears, I took a deep breath. I said to her, okay, really appreciate your help. Let's do this. And we worked together for a solution. So my very fresh new experience of having the courage to really show up for yourself and not deny who you truly are, and not deny the natural way that we are able to express ourselves and deal with situations. Now, I am not encouraging you just to go out there and be 100% your authentic self and say whatever you like to whomever you like, because that's not going to be helpful either. But what I am saying is use some common sense, depending on the situation, depending on the dynamic. If it feels okay for you to be your authentic self, then practice doing that, even in tiny little bits, because it does take courage and it is a process. But I would really, really encourage you to sit with yourself, feel into yourself, try and connect with that aspect that's been pushed down and ignored. It hasn't been seen, it hasn't been felt, it hasn't been heard. Because when you do finally connect with it, oh, there is a feeling of wholeness and joy and gratitude. And I was going to use the word peace, but I'm not quite there yet, but it's close. It was the payoff for my courage in this situation was well worth it. And what I have found a few days after that integration is I spent my Sunday yesterday painting watercolor. I was trying to build my skill around my watercolor fashion illustration. And I was able to take that fuller, integrated expression of myself into my artwork. It came through. I was making different marks. I was less in my head about being perfectionist. I was more able just to let whatever came out. And some of what came out was pretty average, let me tell you. There were some pieces that went in the bin that were complete failures as far as a pretty illustration goes, but I still had a great time through that session, even though some of it was uncomfortable, because I was exploring and I was expressing and I was going into new territory. And that is what slowly but surely exploring our authentic expression is all about. Releasing this persona that we've built up to protect ourselves from the world and having the courage to go out and show just one of those aspects of our authentic self out into the world. So please let me know in the comments if this resonated with you. I would love if you practiced that this week to go out and tell me what was your experience. How did it feel? Just tapping in and giving that part of you a voice. What's the name of that aspect that you haven't heard or that you've been ashamed of? How did it feel when you finally connected with that part of you? How did it feel when you went out in the world and gave that aspect expression? This is a big journey we're taking together, but I am really, really curious and really keen to hear what your experience of that was. So from my heart to yours, I will look forward to connecting again with you next week. Bye for now.